WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar and Ouagadougou, 7 p.m. in Abuja. Good evening and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM, online at wadr.org and on YouTube and Facebook. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Senegal's Prime Minister and other cabinet officials appear before the assembly to address key national issues.
As far as Mali is concerned, the situation is a special one. We are facing a crisis that is creating not only political but also security challenges in our sub-region.
Burkina Faso introduces a new mining sovereign fund to support major development investments in the country. A federal high court in Abuja holds the Electoral Commission's timetable ahead of Nigeria's 2027 general elections.
This particular judgment has thrown the gates open for all forms of cross-carpeting or decamping or people joining political parties. It's created that room.
And Uganda shuts down all air and land borders to neighboring countries as Ebola epidemic rages in Central Africa. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Abdullahi Hassan.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Newslink begins in Senegal as Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko and several other ministers appeared at National Assembly earlier today for a question and answer session. They were questioned by lawmakers on current national issues. The security situation in Mali also featured prominently in the debate. Asked about measures taken by the states to protect Senegal from the growing security threat in the region, the government said steps have been taken along Senegal's land borders with Mali in collaboration with authorities in Bamako. Augustine Kole reports.
Several issues were discussed during the parliamentary session, notably the security situation in the sub-region. Lawmakers questioned the government on measures being taken to protect Senegal from the growing security threat spilling over from neighboring Mali. Dakar says it has stepped up surveillance along its land borders in coordination with Bamako, while also pursuing diplomatic initiatives aimed at supporting stability in the region. Senegal's Minister of African Integration and Foreign Affairs is Sheikh Yang.
As far as Mali is concerned, the situation is a special one. We are facing a crisis that is creating not only political but also security and humanitarian challenges in our sub-region. We remain in constant contact with the Malian government to see what Senegal can discreetly contribute to addressing the challenges they are facing. That is why, whenever we have the opportunity to speak with our partners, we strongly advocate that they should not abandon Mali.
On other issue, Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko reacted strongly to questions relating to national values and legislation. He denounced what he described as the tyranny of the West, accusing Western countries of seeking to impose homosexuality on the rest of the world.
No Arab country criticizes us. No African country criticizes us. But there is a small group called the West. It represents less than 5 or 10% of the world's population. Yet because they have the means and control the media, they want to impose their dictates, their culture, and their civilization. In fact, we should not even speak of civilization in relation to this issue, because this is not civilization. And today, they want to impose it on the rest of the world. In the name of what?
The Prime Minister also rejected any moratorium on the enforcement of Senegal's recently adopted law strengthening sanctions against what the country describes as acts against nature in the predominantly Muslim nation.
Augustine Kole with that report. Still in Senegal, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye the day before launched a national consultation here in Dakar with key stakeholders including former prime ministers. Chairing the opening session at the presidential palace, President Diomaye Faye discussed several issues including the current political tension, the economy and security situation. While the talks continue, a few opposition groups including the former ruling coalition have announced a boycott. Outside the political cycle, experts and observers are questioning the significance of the national dialogues after two previous sessions in 2024 and 2025 that recommended both political and judicial reforms. Mamadou Joe, a Senegalese political analyst, joins us later in the news for more analysis. Now, in Burkina Faso, the government has announced a new sovereign mining fund aimed at supporting major development investments. Known as the Senior Singui Fund, the initiative is expected to finance industrial and infrastructure projects starting from 2027. Imoredet has more.
According to the government, the Sovereign Mining Fund is designed to ensure that revenues from the country's mining sector benefit both current and future generations. Burkina Faso's Economy Minister Abubakar Nakanabo says the fund will be financed through additional revenues generated from mining activities.
Taking
into account a benchmark price level for minerals, any revenue generated above these prices will be paid into this sovereign fund. Naturally, the fund will enable us to finance strategic investments in infrastructure as well as in industry. The fund will be created as a special allocation account, which will make it possible to finance not only industrial projects but also infrastructure projects. It will also help create intergenerational savings.
The new fund will be overseen by a steering committee headed by Prime Minister João Manuel Drago. However, the government has yet to provide details on how the fund will operate or the size of its capital. Officials say the first projects financed under the scheme should begin in 2027. The Siniyan Sugi Fund adds to existing mining-related funds already operating in Burkina Faso, including a mining development fund and an environmental fund dedicated to rehabilitating exhausted mining sites.
A report by WADR's Ouagadougou correspondent Martin Kaba and voiced by Imoredet.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
As a reminder, we're streaming live at wadr.org and on YouTube and Facebook at WADR. Let's take you to Chad, where the Supreme Court has upheld the 20-year prison sentence handed to former Prime Minister Success Masra after rejecting his final appeal. The opposition leader was convicted on charges of assassination and complicity, spreading hate messages electronically, and criminal conspiracy in connection with the Mandakao killings case. Veronica Njai tells us more.
The Criminal Chamber of Chad Supreme Court on Thursday upheld the earlier conviction and sentence handed to former Prime Minister Success Masra. The ruling confirmed the August 2025 decision by the Jamina Court of Appeal, which sentenced the leader of opposition party, Les Transformateurs, to 20 years in prison. Masra's defense team failed to convince the court to overturn the ruling, while prosecutors and lawyers representing the Chadian state successfully defended the conviction. The Supreme Court's decision is final and cannot be appealed, leaving a presidential pardon as Masra's only remaining possibility for release. His party and several human rights organizations continue to denounce the trial as politically motivated and are calling for his immediate release. Defense lawyers have also repeatedly requested medical evacuation for Masra, citing serious respiratory health problems, but those requests have not been granted. Despite being in detention, Success Masra has continued to communicate publicly with his supporters, recently calling for dialogue and cooperation with the authorities in the interest of national unity.
Veronica Njai reporting there. More on judicial matters, the Cybercrime Court in Bamako, the Malian capital, has opened the first session of its criminal chamber. The newly established specialized court is already examining several cases linked to offenses committed in the digital space, marking an important step for Mali's justice system. Christopher Ticho has more.
A total of 4 cases involving 8 accused persons have been listed for this inaugural session. The suspects are being prosecuted for a range of offenses, including online insults and threats, fraud through information technologies, and acts considered to undermine state security through digital systems. According to authorities, the criminal chamber is expected to strengthen the fight against cyber-related offences and contribute to securing cyberspace. Justice Minister Mamadou Kasongi welcomed the operational launch of the specialized jurisdiction.
We decided to replace the assize courts with criminal chambers in order to avoid the heavy procedures that often characterized assize court proceedings. The objective is to have criminal chambers that are more flexible and faster, so accused persons can know their fate more quickly. The offenses that were once being recorded extensively on social media are beginning to decline, and we encourage everyone to continue in this direction so that cyberspace can truly become a peaceful space, one where our societal values are also upheld.
The inaugural hearing is expected to continue for 1 week at the National Center for the Fight Against Cybercrime in Bamako.
A report by WADR's Bamako correspondent Aliyu Cham and voiced in our studios by Christopher Aticho. Away from the Sahel, a federal high court in Nigeria's capital cancelled portions of the schedule of activities submitted by the Independent National Electoral Commission, otherwise known as INEC. The Abuja court decision affects the timetable for party primaries, submission of candidate files, and membership registers. The court ruled that some of the timelines issued by the electoral body were inconsistent with provisions of the Electoral Act 2026. The development comes as Nigeria readies for the 2027 general elections. From Abuja, Yeshanu Sasetu reports.
The judgment followed a suit filed by the Youth Party challenging the powers of the Independent National Electoral Commission to prescribe timelines for party primaries and submission of party documents ahead of the 2027 general elections. The Federal High Court ruled that portions of the timetable issued by INEC were inconsistent with provisions of the Electoral Act, stressing that the Commission does not have the statutory authority to alter timelines already provided by the law. Reacting to the development, Executive Director of Yaga Africa, Samson Itodu, says it remains within the rights of political parties to seek legal interpretation through the courts on electoral matters.
This is a democracy, and in a democracy, when political actors feel that their interests and their rights are being infringed upon, they have every right to seek legal redress through the court. And so the fact that a political party decided to ventilate its grievance through the courts, I think it's a welcome development.
He, however, warns that the ruling could create uncertainty in the electoral process and affect preparations already underway ahead of the 2027 elections.
This particular judgment has thrown the gates open for all forms of, whether you call them cross-carpeting or decamping or people joining political parties. It's created that room. Unless a stay of execution order is granted by the court or an appeal is filed and is dispensed of timeously, the space is open as of today. So we just have to wait because time is of essence.
On May 15, INEC confirmed that all 22 registered political parties in Nigeria had submitted their membership registers in compliance with the Electoral Act 2026. The ruling is expected to shape ongoing conversations around electoral reforms, institutional powers, and the conduct of party primaries as Nigeria moves closer to another election cycle. For WADR, Yeshanu Sasetu in Abuja.
Crossing over to Ghana, the government says efforts are being stepped up to ensure the safe return of its nationals caught up in xenophobic attacks in South Africa after a planned evacuation was delayed due to operational and legal procedures. An initial group of about 300 Ghanaians had been expected to leave on Thursday from more than 800 nationals who registered with Ghana's High Commission in Pretoria. From Accra, Nadiri Tete reports.
The latest postponement comes as officials from Ghana and South Africa work to streamline procedures ahead of the large-scale evacuation exercise. According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the number of Ghanaians seeking evacuation support has risen to more than 800, prompting authorities to expand coordination efforts to ensure the process is carried out safely and in accordance with South African regulations. Government had planned to begin the first phase of the evacuation on Thursday, with an initial group of about 300 people. But the ministry says the complexity of the operation, including passenger verification processes, flight clearance arrangements, and coordination among multiple state institutions, has made a short delay unavoidable. The statement added that both Ghanaian and South African authorities have since agreed on enhanced pre-evacuation measures aimed at improving efficiency and accelerating the return process for affected nationals. International relations expert Dr. Ishmael Hlovo has lauded government for its intervention.
We must give some credit to the government for monitoring the situation and always taking decisions when they deem it necessary in favor of Ghanaians. I think largely we can give them a fair score and say that they have done relatively well. Of course, the situation is not totally over, so we will still continue to see how the government responds to this.
Government is yet to announce a new date for the evacuation, but has assured Ghanaians in South Africa that every effort is being made to ensure their safe return home and commended them for their patience and cooperation. For WDR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM. We're live online at wadr.org and on YouTube and Facebook at WADR. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Senegal's Prime Minister and other cabinet officials appear before the Assembly to address key national issues. Burkina Faso introduces a new mining sovereign fund to support major development investments in the country. A federal high court in Abuja halts the Electoral Commission's timetable ahead of Nigeria's 2027 general elections. Ahead in the news, Uganda shuts down all air and land borders to neighboring countries as Ebola epidemic rages in Central Africa. We also have the guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Many thanks for staying with us. Now talking economy, the Central Bank of the Gambia has maintained its monetary policy rate at 14%, citing rising inflation risks and growing global uncertainty. Governor Boasedi says the decision followed a two-day Monetary Policy Committee meeting and was influenced by renewed inflationary pressures, geopolitical tensions, and the ongoing Middle East conflict, which has pushed up global energy and transport costs. Sandona Mendimbanjo completes the story.
According to the governor, despite external pressures, the Gambia's economy continues to show resilience with strong performances recorded in tourism, construction, trade and financial services. The central bank projects the economy to grow by 5.7% in 2026, although this marks a slight downward revision due to global economic risks and inflationary pressures. Boasedi is the governor of the Central Bank of the Gambia.
The weaker outlook reflects the adverse impact of geopolitical tensions, elevated energy prices, and increased uncertainty on global trade, investment, and financial conditions.
He said underlying inflationary pressures have also intensified, prompting the committee to adopt a cautious monetary policy stance. The MPC further resolved to maintain the commercial bank's required reserve ratio at 13%, the standing deposit facility rate at 5%, and the standing lending facility rate at 15%. CD reaffirmed the central bank's commitment to restoring inflation to target levels in the medium term, stressing that the bank will continue to closely monitor domestic and global developments and take action when necessary. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Sangdona Mendy reporting from Banjul.
And now, focusing on health, the Liberian government says the national Ebola preparedness measures have been activated amid renewed outbreaks in parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda. Liberia and two of its neighbors, Sierra Leone and Guinea, recorded around 11,000 deaths during 2014 to 2016 Ebola outbreak. With an estimated 5,000 deaths, Liberia accounted for one of the highest national death tolls at the time. Thus, health officials in Monrovia say early preparedness is essential to preventing another national emergency. Abraham Parker tells us.
On Thursday, health authorities convened a high-level national preparedness coordination meeting on the Ebola virus disease, bringing together international partners and health stakeholders to assess Liberia's readiness against any potential importation of the virus. The meeting focused on strengthening interagency coordination, reinforcing surveillance systems, and tightening preventive measures at the border entry points and within local communities. Speaking during the session, National Public Health Institute Interim Director Dr. Sia Wata Kamano said Liberia could not afford complacency despite recording no confirmed Ebola case.
There is no active Ebola outbreak in the country. However, preparedness is not an option. We encourage the public to remain vigilant and report any unusual illness. The public is hereby advised to practice regular hand hygiene, avoid contact with bodily fluid of sick persons, report suspected cases, avoid spreading misinformation.
Meanwhile, World Health Organization country representative to Liberia, Dr. Olusayo Olu, is urging authorities to prioritize monitoring at land and air borders, especially at the Roberts International Airport. The emergency coordination efforts follow a high-level meeting early this week involving Liberian President, the World Health Organization, and the representatives of the U.S. Embassy near Monrovia to discuss additional preventive measures and response pathways amid the evolving regional outbreak situation. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
And in news beyond West Africa, Uganda suspended flights, cross-border passenger transport and weekly markets in high-risk border districts following the confirmation of 2 imported Ebola cases from the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC. Health officials say flights between Uganda and DRC will be halted within 48 hours, while ferry and bus passenger services across the border have also been suspended for 4 weeks. Only cargo and food transport will be allowed. Authorities have also stepped up border patrols and urged the public to observe health safety measures nationwide, including in schools, prisons, hotels, and places of worship.
Politics,
analyses on major news,
social matters, and all. This is The Guest.
Our guest this evening is Mamadou Cho, a Senegalese political analyst who shares his insight into the ongoing national consultation in Senegal led by the presidency. The dialogue that commenced yesterday, May 21, is the third since the current administration came to power in 2024. Across the country at the moment, reactions are mixed by political observers and analysts who question the motive, importance and impacts of a new national dialogue when previous talks have issued recommendations. More importantly, Charles says the timeline of the discussion clashes with Senegal's preparedness for local elections months away.
It is most important to see the recommendation coming from the dialogue which has been held in 2024 and 2025. 2024, we discussed about the justice system, which is problematic in Senegal. And there was a key recommendation. Let me give you one example. For example, the Constitutional Council should be turned into a constitutional court, which is a big move. And for the political system, we are wasting a lot of money when we have a lot of candidates competing the election. So we say it's better to have a single paper where you have all the candidates. And then in so doing, if you are supposed to invest, for example, 20 billion CFA, it can come down to 8 billion CFA. People are waiting for those recommendations to see them turn into law. And the president, in fact, promised he will bring them to the government in the weekly meeting of the ministers and him and his ministers. But we are still waiting to see those recommendations, turn into law. And I think that is what is most important. Look at the current dialogue. The opposition boycotted this dialogue, and that's why I consider that, he could have tried to focus on the recommendation coming from the 2 first dialogue held 2024 and 2025.
Well, can we say that perhaps some of the recommendations from the 2024 and 2025 national consultations were not necessarily his expectation, but at the time said yes to appease the population, but now he wants to review or have a more dynamic consultations now with other stakeholders who were not part of the two previous consultations?
In fact, there are some points where there are consensus. People, say that we can go forward and do this and do that. For the other points where they didn't find this kind of consensus, it's up to the president to decide. Yeah, we can understand if he decided to hold the current dialogue, maybe to have a feedback from these former prime ministers. It is a good thing to, hold dialogue, but when you do it and then talking the same issues, in the long run, people will start asking questions, are you up to the task? We are going to the local election, and the time is running. What the ECOWAS say, if you have to have some kind of law talking about this kind of election, you'll have to get them ready 6 months before the election. And the next local election are due to be held at the end of January 2027. So which means we have not enough time. If we continue dialoguing, and then you have to take maybe 1 or 2 months to see what you can have as recommendation, get ready, and turn them into laws, it takes too much time. I think we could have tried to focus on the recommendation coming from the two first dialogue, and then try to next year continue for another dialogue.
Mamadou Cho, a Senegalese political analyst. In the sporting world, the current Ebola outbreak is already having a wider impact on sporting activities, especially in the epicenter of the epidemic, which is the Democratic Republic of Congo. Indeed, the Leopards, that is the national team of the DRC, have relocated their World Cup preparation and cancelled a planned training camp due to rising concerns over the Ebola virus. Well, as we speak, 139 people have died and over 600 cases of the virus have been detected in DRC, Uganda and South Sudan. Meanwhile, the Confederation of African Football CAF is in full swing with AFCON 2027 qualifying matches. We'll talk more about football. World Cup preparations are ongoing as national teams continue to finalize their rosters heading into the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Senegal has locked in its 36-man roster, while South Africa's Bafana Bafana head coach Hugo Broos and Egypt's Hussam Hassan have already revealed their preliminary squads. In athletics, following the recent 24th African Senior Athletics Championship in Accra, long-distance runners are turning their focus to Cape Town Marathon. And that's it for sports news. With that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM, live online at wadr.org. Many thanks for listening, and special thanks to Kappa Augusto and Ismaila Kamara for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Good evening.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Graft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.